Okay, so I mentioned all along in the series, we're going to get to see the benefits of tests. And so what I want to do before we get started is I want to do a yarn test like we had here and allow this to watch our tests while we make these modifications. And you're going to see instantly sort of the benefit of having these tests at all. So let's check it out here. The first thing we want to do is talk about refactoring this code, and we can check to make sure things are going to be doing what we expect them to do as we move things around here. So we have all of our tests in here, and that's all great. One thing we want to do is start building out some folders and files and things like that. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a new folder in my source folder, and this is just going to be movies. Okay, this is where all the movies are going to live. Let's actually go ahead and I'm going to open that in Finder here, reveal in Finder. You can open it up in your file browser, however you like to name this stuff. I'm actually going to change this to a lowercase m rather than uppercase m. I like to reserve the uppercase for components. And then let's go ahead and start dragging some stuff. First thing I'm going to drag in is the movies list.js. Then I'm going to drag in new movie. Then I'm going to drag in movie form and movie detail, as well as movie.js. Now, lastly, what I want to go ahead and do is open up this folder, and I want to go ahead and create another new folder inside of this one. So we can do a new folder. And I'll move this in here. The way we want to name this folder is __tests__. This is sort of a special name, just like you can see snapshots up here, that, well, it allows Jess to sort of know this is where our tests live. I'm going to actually grab the snapshots folder and drag it into the tests folder. So you should see movies, tests, snapshots. Now I'm going to drag all of our tests, movie form, movie detail, and movie test.js into tests in here. And then lastly, I'm going to grab the other movies tests right here, and I'm going to drag them into tests as well. Okay, so if things are going into complete chaos over here, that's okay. What we can do is go ahead and stop this and restart our tests. And you can see that we've done all these changing things, and while some of our tests, believe it or not, still pass. I mean, which one is still passing here? Maybe it's an accident. Oh, the counter that we made, that test is still passing. So thank heavens for that. What we can do next is we can evaluate why these tests are failing. A lot of them are just going to be failing because of in our test file, let's say movie.test, we're loading from the wrong path. So we can just add a dot save, and maybe we should see that test pass. Next, we can do movie detail dot save this. Okay. Movie form dot save this. Then movies list dot save this, and then new movie. Now you can see all of our tests are passing. However, if we were to run this application, our tests, even though they're still passing, our application is actually going to fail for one key reason. We never tested app.js, which was loading this sort of stuff. So I'd highly recommend the next step for you would be to test app.js. Now, since we've already tested a lot of these components individually, I would just do a test to make sure that this stuff is just rendering and showing up on screen. But as you can see here, a couple of, we just need to add a new directory in here, which is going to be movies. Is just going to fix these tests. Now, this is one of those reasons why you're always going to want to do a quick little manual test as well, because you never know what your test might be missing. You want to make sure your thing boots up correctly. And you can see here, this should all be working. Now, I don't have any API keys in here, but if we do a yarn start on this thing, we should be able to at least get up to a point where we can confirm that this is working. Now, it's funny, cannot read property map of undefined, even though we had a loading in here, which is interesting because we checked to see if movies was less than 1, and if it was going to show the loading. So how it even got past that is an interesting thing. So we can come in here and let's check out, I believe it is movies list, and let's go ahead, and what we want to do, not movies list test, but movies list itself. You can see we have a state that's a default of an array. We have our API that is failing is the problem. And because it is failing, you can see that we are getting some errors here. So let's talk a little bit about this. If we head, I'm going to keep my tests open because we want these tests to continue to pass as we refactor some of this code, right? Again, this API is failing specifically because if we look at movies, let's go ahead and just do a simple log. If we just do a simple log of not a string movies, but movies after it comes back, you can see in our test, it's obviously going to pass. Let's go ahead and refresh this. And if we were to open up our inspect, we should be able to see what this is returning us. It is giving us an object, and that object has a status code 7 with a success message of false. So what this means here is that we need to be looking for a success message of true if we want to be able to display these movies. So what we can do is do a basic if movies dot, and then we're looking for success. If movies success, then we can set the state. Because what was happening was, check it out, if there was a false message in here, it was still setting this to an undefined property, overriding the array that was there. So therefore, it sort of bypassed all of this stuff. And then because it was undefined, it allowed it to get to map. Now, if we go ahead and save this, you're going to see our test fail. You can already see it failing over there. Our test is going to fail because, well, we have no success being returned inside of our object. So we can go modify our test itself in movies.test, and we can set success is equal to true. Now we should hopefully see our test passing. Now, in another assignment, what we can do is we can come in here and we can make a new movies, or we can modify this thing. We can come in here and we could actually have a second test, which was, well, if the API fails, how should this thing respond, right? If there's a failure message coming from the API, should the app crash? It shouldn't. So maybe we should write a test for that. And we could just duplicate this entire test, right? I have movies list, and then I can say API fail. Okay, and now we can mock the response once in here. However, before we do that, let's go ahead and set movies.success equal to false. Okay, now this time it's going to set it to false. And if we save this, you should see this test failing, because if it's set to false, we shouldn't be seeing movie link ever show up. So as you can see here with an API fail, we are seeing this test fail because it never ever finds the movie link, which is great because obviously that means that this thing is doing what we expect it to do. Now we can remove a bunch of these tests in here because obviously they aren't going to matter. And if you really wanted to make this test a little bit more robust than just expecting it to show loading, right? Because that's what we want to see. What you could do is you could have an error state in your component and then check to make sure that error state showed up, as in, hey, these tutorials are never coming because something failed, and then obviously we'd want to check to make sure that was there. So now all of our tests are passing. Let's head back to our actual application, and you can see we see loading here, which is great because this means that this application is not going to fail over something dumb, and we've now actually confirmed visually that this thing is going to load even if the API is not loading itself. So this is all great because, well, we visually confirmed this app will load. We've written the test to cover some use cases that weren't there, and we've done quite a bit of refactoring in our code. And all along, we have confidence that our app is going to maintain performance and do what it's going to do with these tests. Now, in the last video in this series, what we're going to be doing is talking code coverage. Now, it's going to be a really quick video. It's easy to enable, and we're just going to be talking about what it means and when to rely on it and when not to rely on it and what makes sense for it and what code coverage is. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.